Okay, so another one that was requested was Sigma. So we're gonna talk about what Sigma is. Sigma is a main tank, passive aggressive main tank. He's not meant to be played like a Reinhardt, but he's not meant to be played like an Orisa. He's meant to be played in between. He's got multiple abilities that really help his team and help himself with getting quick kill, succession of kills. He fills in the role on Overwatch as a main tank. He's a difficulty 3 stars, which I will say is a perfect spot for him to be. Even to play, he's hard to play. He's extremely harder to master. But once you master him, you will see quite an increase of your ability to, you know, get those kills, help your team out, make sure that your barrier is not being always destroyed, using your ult properly, getting a couple of quick successive kills in a row while utilizing your whole entire kit. So we're going to talk about his first ability, which is his left click. So his left click shoots 2 little orbs on his hand, and you have infinite ammo. They just regenerate back. There's no reload. It takes about 2 seconds to shoot, 2 seconds after you shoot to actually get those orbs back. Sometimes I would probably say about maybe a second actually in between shots. These shots do have a long range, but they also implode in an area of effect after they hit. They can be used to bounce off walls. I use them very much so for myself to get around shields, bounce in between walls, get them off of pillars, kill people who are sitting too far or sitting around something that normally most other tanks can't get. It's very good to push people off edges too. If you can hit them when they're on an edge, you'll actually knock them into wherever or off of whatever they're doing. It's great when you knock someone into the well on Ilios. It's also really good when you knock someone off a point just by accident by shooting it. And then, big one is Oasis, the university, the giant hole in the middle. It's funny to see people get knocked into that. We're going to skip his ult, and we're going to go to his kinetic grasp. His kinetic grasp is his left click or his one ability. Basically what you do is it's much like D.Va's defense matrix. It can eat any kind of projectile as long as it is in front of him. So any kind of shot that's being shot at him, any kind of a grab bomb, what else, a bunch of rockets, a Pharah ult, any of that you can eat in a certain radius though. There is a little bit of a gray spot with it, but it lasts for about 2.5 seconds or so, and you will convert all of it into shield. A lot of Sigmas, like me personally, a lot of other Sigmas will use this to absorb a grab bomb if we can get to it, but it's very useful for negating a whole hog, a Reaper ult, a Pharah ult, eating it all so no damage goes out. When you are doing this though, you want to be up in their face while doing it. So the best thing with a Reaper is when you know a Reaper's coming in, very aggressive, you want to get up in their face and hit that shift and stand in front of him while absorbing everything, because no shot will get by you to hit any teammates, and then your teammate can kill him. It's you. This is your ability that you use much like an Orisa Fortify when you want to push a little bit. You use this, or when you want to back up. I personally use this to back up more so than to play aggressive. I also use it when I'm my shield isn't available, or I've just lost my shield, or I don't have an accretion to go up and I want to push somebody who is being aggressive. So any kind of like their DPS or healer who's being can be taken out by themselves, I'll use this to absorb whatever abilities. It's great for using absorbing an Ana sleep grenade, sleep dart, or her bionic grenade. It's amazing to eat it because it negates the complete effect of both of them, and she's out. She's basically useless for the next 10 seconds. Now, to go on to his next ability, Accretion. Accretion has a small charge time. It will charge up an orb in front of you, a boulder. It has a small charge time, but then you shoot it forward in a straight line. And you can shoot up in the air, and then it will fall back down slowly. Or you can shoot across the map. You can get it across the map, and you can get some really nice ones across the map if you really are good with it. It's used as his 1-2 hit combo, and he's squishy. So the objective here with the 1-2 hit is you either you hit your left click and then you shoot Accretion, hit Accretion with somebody, and then hit them again with the hyperspheres, and you'll one shot, you'll 2-tap that person. This is also used to knock down charging Reinhardts and ulting Reinhardt. It's great to negate a Reinhardt. It's really funny to see a Reinhardt, go to use his, hammer down and get negated. And so it's good to see what you can do with it. There's a lot of different ways you can do your 2 ability. It's not just to use to knock people down or to get the 1-2 hit combo. It can be used to save teammates as well. You're fleeing Ana. You can save her life if you don't have your experimental barrier up. Now, to talk about his right click, which is his 5th ability, or I like to call it just his barrier. There's not really a reason to why. On to why people call it his other extra ability. He really doesn't have more than most other heroes do. So his experimental barrier will shoot a barrier forward in front of you, and it stops at whenever you let go of that right click. So the way to use his barrier, me personally, the way I find to use his barrier is you put it up in front of you to negate a bit of damage, drop it, use your abilities, use a kinetic grasp if you have it up to get some shield, pop it back up, and let it sit, take a little bit more damage, drop it again, and use accretion, use hyper spears, use it like that. Don't use it as a defensive barrier. It's not meant for that. It's meant to stop certain abilities. It's meant to block sight lines. It's meant to stop, you can use this. I use this barrier to kill Pharahs who are ulting by just putting it up in front of her face and watching her blow herself up. Yes, it kills my shield, but I've also taken out one of their ults plus whatever they've used on her. Now, the other thing you can use this for is to 1v1 a target. Place it towards the floor slightly and just jump back and forth between it, and you're going to kill whoever's fighting you unless that person is smart enough to realize, hey, let's stop going left. You're going to play around it. Just like Marissa plays around with her shield, you can play around with the experimental barrier. Now, the one thing I did notice is sometimes with the experimental barrier, if it's not touching the floor, it will not block a Rein Shatter, and then sometimes it will. I've never personally had the issue, but I have had people, tell me, oh, I put my shield up and you still shatter me while I was playing Rein. And I always tell them, like, are you sure, it was on the floor? But I've also seen it block me halfway up in the air. So it's a very finicky barrier, but it's a very powerful barrier when used right. So like I said, with using that barrier, you kind of want to use it as a small defensive barrier. So not like a Reinhardt shield. You want to use it, to block a bit of damage, bring it back, use your kinetic grasp, do some damage, use accretion if you have it, pop it back out, let it take a bit more damage, and just rinse and repeat that combo over and over again if you can. Use the barrier only if you're retreating, you can leave the barrier completely up. If you're not retreating, you're just playing a little bit aggressive, use the barrier, drop back, use the barrier, drop back. Now, his ultimate, which is his Gravatic Flux. So this ability, what you're going to do is you're going to go up in the air, and you're going to have a giant AoE. I believe it's 15 yards wide, the AoE, and it's going to mark the area, you left click, and it's going to send everybody in the area of effect at the time up in the air. Now something to notice about, mention about this is Moras can get out of it, Reapers can get out of it, Orissas can get out of it, Zaryas can negate it with her bubble, a couple other characters can negate it with certain abilities. Anybody who has an ability that can get out, so like even a Sombra can by pressing her E and getting out, those ability people can get out of this barrier. Now what it does, get out of this ult. Now what it does is it lifts them up. They're in the air for I think a second and a half. They drop back down and they take 50% of their max HP at the time of dropping. Now, it's great to kill fleeing targets. It's great to set up other ults. I have used this personally to set up a Diva Bomb. I've used it personally to set up a Reaper ult. I've used it personally to set up a Junkrat Tire. It's great because if you catch whoever their main shield tank is in it, they can't block any of the damage that is going out. I have personally used this against enemy teams just to help out other members. You lift the Rein up, you can actually get a McCree to ult the whole entire team, and they can't do a damn thing about it. Now, with this ult, one thing to mention is if you were too close to the target, you're going to realize that you're going to get stunned. You can be slept out of it, you can be stunned out of it, you can be hooked out of it, you can be anything that stops an ult, this can stop it. Now, what you want to do with this ult is you don't want to use it too close to the person or characters who can stun you. So if then you know they have a McCree, don't go diving their line and then hitting Q because you're just going to get stunned out of it. What you want to do is you want to hit Q, slowly fly towards them, bring them up in the air with it, and then drop down and start doing damage. Now, while you're up in the air, one thing to mention is you can still left click. you're not stopping. You don't have to stop the left click. You don't have to stop doing any damage. You can still left click once you've lifted them up in the air. Just left click. Bring people down below that 50% HP marker. Watch them implode. Now, to talk about him in a whole, what you basically want to do if you're one-shot comboing as a Sigma, you're going to want to use Accretion plus your Hyper Spears. These are your two abilities that are going to do the most damage for you. Now, Accretion takes a little bit of time to charge up, but if you can time it and know where that person is going, you can hit that person with the Accretion and then hit them with the Hyper Spears and 1-2 combo them. Now, to reiterate what that will do is it will kill them in the two abilities. You don't have to worry about, oh, they're going to get away. You can kill the person with those two abilities. Now, to use the Experimental Barrier and Kinetic Grasp properly, you have to learn what each one benefits and each one benefits where and which one doesn't. So if you're fighting a Zarya, the Kinetic Grasp is useless. Don't use it on a Zarya, Symmetra. Don't use it on characters that don't have any projectiles. So a Reinhardt who's swinging at you, it's useless. So is your barrier. On a Zarya, and a Sim, your barrier is better. However, when fighting a Sim, be very careful because a Sim can shred your barrier and then charge yourself up off your barrier. So you might not even want to use the barrier. You might want to just let yourself die in that case. Now, with the Experimental Barrier, if you're in a team fight, you might want to pop it up in front of you for a bit and then drop it in Kinetic Grasp to help your team out. Now, that will allow people to hide behind a barrier, and then your Kinetic Grasp will allow you to get shields. When you are doing the Kinetic Grasp, make sure you're in front of the backline. Don't let your backline be exposed because you've dropped your barrier now. You want to get in front of them, and you want to eat as much damage as possible during this, because every bit of damage that is taken from that goes into a shield for you. So you just make sure you're knowing which one to use and which one not to use. And with your Graphitic Flux, remember, you don't want to be up close when hitting that Q. If you have it and you know it's a team, you can win the team fight with it, use it. But don't be close enough to a McCree, a Widow, even a Sombra, an Ana, a Widow, a Sombra, a Reaper. They all can kill you, or a Hog. They can all kill you in your ult because you are a stationary target when you're up in the air. So make sure you use it when you know either you're going to win a team fight, you need to get the team fight, or you need to stop the team from touching it. So I personally use Graphitic Flux for retreating enemies on a point to clear a point really quickly or stop them from getting the point. I use it to initiate a fight as well. It's a very powerful one. Now, another thing is if you're nanoed and using Graphitic Flux, that is perfect. You're taking less damage while pumping out the exact same damage you would Graphitic Flux, but your Hyperspheres are doing 50% more. So it's great to use your being nanoed while using Graphitic Flux. And that is my guide on Sigma. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and ask away, and I will respond to them as needed, or message me on Discord, and I will be happy to help you out and offer some advice that I have. Until next time, guys.